I showed up to Naval Base Coronado with my boots too clean, my hair too perfect, and my last name already working against me. Morgan. Elena Morgan. And apparently, that was enough to put a target on my back before I even stepped onto the training field. See, my sister Claire Hastings was already stationed there, a commissioned officer, charismatic, sharp, picture-perfect in her uniform. We shared a mom, not a childhood, not values, definitely not loyalty. Day 1, I didn't expect special treatment, but I didn't expect public humiliation, either. It started during orientation. We were lined up like high schoolers on a field trip, waiting for the lead instructor. That's when Claire walked in, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the group. Her eyes landed on me, the smirk hit a second later. Well, looks like the Navy's getting soft. I didn't move. She walked up slowly, circling. Did you forget this is a combat-ready program, or did someone accidentally send in a civilian looking for a desk job? A couple recruits snickered. I stayed still. Claire leaned in. Ladies and gentlemen, meet my half-sister. She used to write about strategy from behind a keyboard. Now she wants to wear boots and pretend she's one of us. She didn't say welcome, she said pretend. And that stuck. The room shifted. I felt it. Everyone's eyes changed. I wasn't Elena Morgan, new recruit. I was the sister, the outsider, the joke. That night, I got assigned to Delta Unit. The bottom of the barrel. The squad they stuck with leftovers, injured transfers, and people just barely hanging on. I wasn't surprised. Claire didn't say a word, but her fingerprints were all over it. Day 2 started at 0430. By 0500, we were halfway through our first swim test. Now, I'm a good swimmer, but pool swimming and open water drills? Different animal. The waves in Coronado don't care about your intentions. 10 minutes in, my rhythm broke. My breathing went haywire. My arms felt like anchors. I didn't pass out. I just stopped moving. Some instructor had to yank me back by the shoulder strap and drag me to the shore like a duffel bag. The rest of Delta stood there, watching. Claire? She didn't even come check. But later that day, she walked past during chow and said just loud enough for others to hear, maybe next time try floaties. That one got a real laugh. I didn't eat much after that. Not because I was embarrassed. I was starving. I just couldn't chew through the feeling that every single person on that base had already decided I didn't belong. That night, while the others were either knocked out or faking push-ups, I stayed up and cleaned my gear. I memorized the next day's drills. I read the training schedule like it was a battle plan. Because I knew something Claire didn't. I wasn't here to prove anything to her. I was here because our father Daniel Morgan served 20 years, got dishonorably discharged over a scandal that never made sense, and died with a shredded reputation no one bothered to fix. Claire stayed quiet when it happened. She kept her record clean, said nothing publicly, and kept moving up the chain. Me? I took a different route. I built a career in private defense. I studied tactics, strategy, behavioral mapping, then I burned it all down, walked away, and enlisted at 28. Not to make a point. To finish what he started. To prove he wasn't the man they said he was. And maybe just maybe make sure no one like him ever got left behind again. You don't have to like someone to respect where they came from. But Claire didn't respect anyone but herself. She wore the uniform like a mirror, and only saluted when someone more useful was standing in front of her. What bothered her most wasn't that I was trying. It was that I wasn't quitting. Quick side note, if you've ever had to keep your mouth shut while someone mocks you in public, just to outwork them later, leave a comment. And, if you want more stories like this, you know what to do, hit subscribe. I'm just getting started. The next day, I showed up 15 minutes early for gear check. The rest of Delta was half asleep. I ran drills by myself until sunrise, while the others barely showed up on time. The instructors didn't say much, but one of them, Master Chief Rourke, kept watching. During weapons handling, Claire stopped by again. She stood in the corner, arms crossed, observing. At one point, she whispered to Rourke, too quiet for me to hear. Then out loud, she said, "Let's hope you don't drop the rifle like you dropped out of that swim test." I picked up the training weapon, chambered a round, locked it, and ran through the full routine. No words. No emotion. Just clean, perfect form. Claire didn't say anything after that. She turned around and walked off. No smirk this time. Just silence. Someone in Delta coughed behind me. Not a sick cough, more like a half laugh, half hack, that said, "Why are you trying so hard?" I ignored it. My boots were already laced. My rifle was clean, my bunk squared away, and my body running on caffeine in spite. Nobody had said a word to me since the swim test, not a single one. I was officially the invisible girl, who failed on day 2 and got a free pass because her sister wore bars. Delta was a mess. Our squad was made up of a guy who couldn't finish a run without puking, a woman who didn't even pretend to care, and a third who talked more about getting out than getting better. No one was here to win. They were here to survive long enough to not get kicked out. There was no real leadership, no unity. Just a lot of "not my problem," and "just do what they say." The instructors barely looked at us. We were written off. Every other unit had tight formations, cadence, direction. We looked like a bunch of strangers thrown into uniforms and told to walk the same way badly. No one expected anything from us, and that included Claire. She avoided me now, like stepping near Delta might infect her record. Her game was psychological. Public embarrassment? Sure, but she preferred the slow burn kind. The kind where you watch someone drown without ever pushing them in. At Chow, Delta sat in the back. Always. No one invited us to sit anywhere else, and none of us asked. I sat with my tray, eating like I was timing myself, because I knew what came next. Gear drills. Then fitness assessments. Then, another reminder that we weren't measuring up. Someone knocked their elbow into my tray. Rice went everywhere. No apology. Just a glance and a smirk. I looked at the mess, then picked up my tray, walked to the trash, dumped it, and came back to the table with nothing. If I got mad, they'd win. If I said something, I'd be the problem. So I said nothing. Instead, I spent that night writing. Not journaling, not venting. I built a squad profile like I used to do in my old job. Each member of Delta got a breakdown: strengths, weaknesses, what motivated them, or didn't. If I couldn't lead them officially, I'd do it silently. I needed to understand them before I could move with them. At 0400, I started running laps alone. By 0600, I knew who was sleeping through alarms, who needed caffeine before speaking, who taped up their feet too tight, who used anxiety as fuel and who used it as a wall. Noticing these things wasn't emotional. It was tactical. I didn't need friends. I needed performance. If we were going to be the failure squad, we could at least fail cleaner. Mid-week, we were assigned a mock clearance drill, one of those paint-round nightmares designed to test team coordination. Every unit got an instructor. We got none. They literally handed us a map and a time limit and said, "Figure it out." No plan. No structure. And somehow, everyone looked at me. I didn't say much. Just gave assignments, like it was obvious. "You've got good eyes, take rear. You're the fastest, flank left. Don't worry about being quiet. Worry about timing." We didn't win, but we didn't come in last, either. And nobody forgot their part. No one froze up. We moved like a team for the first time. Rourke watched from a distance. He didn't say anything, just nodded once like he'd been waiting to see what I'd do. That nod didn't mean much on paper, but in that moment, it felt like the first ounce of air after being held underwater. Claire didn't show her face that day. Maybe she thought I'd quit by now. Maybe she was busy pretending I didn't exist. But word traveled fast. And if there's one thing the Navy respects, it's performance, especially when it comes from the place they least expect it. By the end of week 2, someone from Bravo asked if I wanted to train with them on off time. I said no. Not because I didn't want to. Because I wasn't leaving Delta behind. I'd rather build something out of a mess than join something already finished. That night, I stayed late with one of the quieter guys in the squad, helping him break down his weapon without fumbling. He didn't say thanks. He didn't need to. The next morning, when I lined up early, he was already standing there. Still didn't say anything, just nodded. Small victories. We ran PT drills that day. Claire was present, watching again. Someone asked her if she wanted to run with us. She laughed. "I don't run with Delta." Problem standed. I was 10 feet away. I heard it clearly. We started the run. First mile was rough, people fell behind early. I stayed steady. Second mile, Claire joined in anyway, not because she had to, because she wanted to prove something. She ran right next to me for half a mile, not a word, just breathing and footsteps. Then she said, under her breath, "You're not going to last." I didn't respond. I didn't even look at her. At the finish, I came in 2 spots ahead of her. And for once, she didn't laugh. She didn't even speak. She just stared like something about the math wasn't adding up. My boots were soaked before sunrise, and I hadn't even hit the obstacle course yet. Someone had left the hose running by our side of the barracks. I didn't report it. Reporting things at Coronado didn't fix anything, it just marked you as the kind of recruit who thought the rules still worked. The course that morning was timed. Rope climbs, wall jumps, mud crawls, full gear. Delta was already at a disadvantage, we didn't move as one yet. Still, I made it through fast, clean, with a time that should have raised eyebrows. Instead, I got flagged for incomplete execution. I didn't argue, I just nodded. Turns out, the instructor watching our lane had been randomly reassigned halfway through our run, replaced by one of Claire's closest peers. What a coincidence! No one said the word sabotage. They didn't need to. You could feel it. The quiet smirks, the way the clipboard was already filled out before I even crossed the finish line. Later that day, Claire made a casual stop at Delta's training yard. She wasn't even on the schedule. She watched us practice tactical formations like she was window shopping at a place she'd never actually buy from. Then, right in front of the squad, she said, "Just so you all know, your squad leader's under review." Nothing official yet, but keep that in mind before following her lead too closely. I wasn't even the squad leader. That wasn't a thing in Delta, but the implication stuck. It worked. The others started second-guessing me. I could see it on their faces. That edge we'd started building, cracked right down the middle. One of them, Rodriguez, the fastest runner in our group, pulled me aside after drills. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, "but they're pushing to move you out, quietly. Admin excuse, fitness, maybe, or unsuitability. It won't be loud, you'll just not be here anymore." I looked at him, deadpan. "You believe them?" He shrugged. "I believe you didn't get that score by accident. But it doesn't matter what I believe." That part was true. I had no control over official decisions. I had no rank, no voice. Nothing but performance, and now even that was getting rewritten. So I doubled down. I trained harder, longer. After hours, I took Delta's weakest member, Harlow, and started working one-on-one. She couldn't shoot straight to save her life, couldn't navigate worth anything, and looked like she was counting the days until discharge. But I saw something in her timing. Instincts, the kind you can't teach. She hated me at first. Thought I was trying to turn her into a pet project. But when we started doing night drills, she stuck around. By the end of the week, she was shooting tighter groups than half of Alpha. Meanwhile, Claire kept her distance. She didn't need to strike again yet. Her plan was working. Let me unravel on my own. The real hit came during a navigation exam. Team-based. Compasses, maps, unknown terrain. First squad back with correct checkpoints wins. Each team had 5 members. Delta had 4. We were short, but no one offered help. They told us to adapt. So we did. We moved fast, split tasks smart. Halfway through, we realized our compass was miscalibrated. The needle was sticking, then jumping. Cheap model? Maybe. Or maybe someone switched it out. Again, no proof, just patterns. Still, we pushed forward, using terrain markers and instinct. We didn't win. But we weren't last. We were second. And we were accurate. When we returned, the instructor barely looked up from his notes. "Disqualified," he said. "Why?" I asked. "Too few team members. Minimum is 5. It's in the handbook." It wasn't. I checked later. The rule didn't exist. But again, no appeal, no process, just silence. Claire walked past while we were packing up. She didn't stop, didn't smile, just said under her breath, "It's not always the strong who survive. It's the ones who know how to play the game." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words. Because I didn't need to. She thought I was playing defense. She didn't realize I was building a fence quietly, piece by piece, one rep, one teammate at a time. That night, I caught Rourke watching us from a distance. Again. No clipboard, no rank showing. Just a pair of boots in the dirt, arms crossed, eyes calculating. I walked over. "You gonna write me up too?" I asked. He didn't smile, just said, "You're either incredibly patient or incredibly dangerous." "Why not both?" I answered. He looked at me for a long second, then said, "You ever consider leading for real?" "I'm not here to lead," I said. "I'm here to fix what someone broke." He didn't ask who. He already knew. The next morning, someone had reorganized Delta's drill schedule quietly. Suddenly, we had more time on the range, more time on obstacle courses, less downtime. No explanation, but every update had the same signature at the bottom. MC Rourke. No one else noticed. But I did. Harlow showed up early the next morning. No one told her to. She just stood on the field, rifle already slung, boots laced up so tight I could hear them creak. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. 15 minutes later, Rodriguez joined. Then Carter. Even Knox, the guy who used to fake stomach cramps, was there before sunrise. No pep talks, no speeches, just movement. We started running drills like we had something to prove. Because we did. I split the team into pairs, rotated them through scenarios. Breach and clear, basic formations, silent comms. Half of it wasn't even on the required schedule yet. I didn't care. The Navy didn't wait for you to feel ready. And if Delta wanted a shot at surviving the next round of evaluations, they had to stop moving like ghosts. The shift wasn't loud. It was barely visible to outsiders. But inside the unit, you could feel it. Rodriguez stopped mouthing off. Knox started asking questions instead of making excuses. And Harlow, for the first time, corrected someone else's stance without sounding apologetic. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fast. But it was working. Rourke kept us under the radar. He didn't say much, just made sure we had space an hour more range time here, and adjusted drill schedule there. No favoritism, just a clear signal. If you want the time, earn it. And we did. 3 days into the new rhythm, we got thrown into a base-wide response simulation. Unannounced. Zero prep. Every squad had to respond to a fake threat, scenario, full gear, live comms, time pressure, no outside help. Most teams had done these before. Delta hadn't. We were usually kept out of anything high stakes. Easier to manage the embarrassment. But this time, they couldn't leave us out. So they dropped us in the worst location, poor visibility, uneven terrain, multiple entry points, the kind of setup designed to confuse a team that doesn't trust each other. We moved fast, anyway. I kept the plan simple. Rodriguez took point. Carter watched the rear, Knox stayed eyes on movement, and Harlow handled comms. I stayed in center to float and adjust. We didn't look clean. We didn't sound clean. But we were communicating, reacting. Nobody froze, nobody argued, and nobody quit. When we reached the final checkpoint, the evaluator was already smirking, like he expected a mess. "Delta. Interesting," he said, pen in hand. I handed him our completed form. Zone cleared. Simulated hostiles neutralized. Time, 12 minutes, 39 seconds. He blinked. "Say that again?" "I am 8%. I repeated it. He looked down at his watch, then at his clipboard, then at us. "You beat Bravo by 4 seconds. We didn't cheer. We didn't need to. The win wasn't for show. It was for survival." We walked back to the barracks in silence, boots hitting gravel in sync. That silence said more than any speech could. Later that night, Claire paid me a visit. Not a professional drop-in. She waited until lights out, then called me out back like we were teenagers sneaking off for a fight. "I heard about your little drill win," she said. I didn't respond. "You know it doesn't change anything, right? You're not suddenly a contender just because you scraped by." I'm not trying to be a contender," I said. "I'm trying to make sure no one here gets left behind while you're busy climbing ladders." She scoffed. "You think this is about ego?" I looked her dead in the face. "For you. Always has been." She stared for a second, then shook her head. You're lucky Dad's not alive to see this. No, I said. You're lucky he's not. For a split second, her jaw twitched. I'd hit something. But she backed off, walked away without another word. The next morning, I got called into admin. Not disciplinary, just a scheduling shift. Apparently, Delta had been selected for a joint drill rotation with Charlie unit. Higher intensity. Mixed command structure. Normally, a reward. But I knew better. Claire wasn't done. She couldn't sync me directly, so she'd overload the team and wait for us to break in front of a better unit. Still, I accepted. Joint drills meant exposure, and exposure meant pressure. If we could hold up under it, no one could write us off again. Charlie's squad leader was Lieutenant Brennan, young, cocky, way too into his own performance scores, the kind of guy who measured value in kill times and protein macros. He looked at us like we were mailroom interns crashing a SEAL team meeting. Delta? He said. Did they run out of actual candidates? I didn't blink. Just here to see what real coordination looks like. That earned me a smirk. The drill started. Urban layout, variable threats, timed infiltration. Brennan's team moved with textbook precision. We moved like we'd read a different textbook, one with real-world corrections scrawled in the margins. Halfway through, his second-in-command froze during a jammed door breach. Harlow stepped in, cleared the path, re-secured the flank. Brennan didn't say thanks, but he didn't make another joke. After the exercise, Rourke handed me a sealed folder. No smile, no warning. Inside, updated rankings. Delta had climbed 2 slots. We weren't at the top, but we weren't at the bottom anymore. And someone had written in the margin. Not bad. For the squad that wasn't supposed to make it past week 3. Brennan stopped talking the moment the rankings went up. His entire personality ran on being in the top 3. Now that we'd passed his team, he went quiet. Real quiet. But Claire? She did the opposite. 2 days later, she was suddenly everywhere shadowing drills she normally wouldn't care about, sitting in evaluations like she was auditing us for fun, making sure her name was attached to any document that even mentioned Delta. She wasn't impressed, she was cornered. Claire didn't like losing control. Especially not in a place she'd built herself to thrive in. The more we rose, the more she watched. Like she couldn't figure out how the same squad of throwaways she handpicked to humiliate me was now outperforming half the base. Our win in the joint drill had made people talk, not in a congratulatory way, more like they couldn't decide whether to be shocked or annoyed. We weren't supposed to function, let alone win. The day after the rankings update, I walked past the admin board. Someone had scribbled over Delta's score with a red marker. Fluke. No one claimed it. No one had to. Rodriguez saw it too. He didn't say anything, just ripped the page down and tossed it in the trash. I didn't stop him. Later that afternoon, Claire approached me during a logistics run. Not in private this time. Not even subtle. Impressive what you've pulled off, she said, loud enough for the other squads to hear. You're doing better than expected. For someone who almost drowned week 1. I kept loading gear into the transport. She moved closer. You should really enjoy this while it lasts. I glanced over. Is that a threat or a tip? She smiled, sharp and polite. I guess we'll both find out. When I got back to the barracks, a message was waiting for me, official notification. I'd been nominated for an early leadership evaluation. Not a promotion, not a rank change, just a formal assessment. Voluntary, optional, totally optional. Except it wasn't. It was Claire's move. If I accepted and failed, it would be on record. If I declined, it would look like fear. Either way, she won. I stared at the form. Thought about it. Then signed it. I wasn't going to win this by dodging punches. I was going to win it by standing still while she swung and watching her run out of ways to land a hit. The evaluation was set for 2 days later. Until then, I kept my head down and stayed on mission. Delta had a second joint drill coming up, this time with Bravo, one of the most efficient squads in rotation. Their squad leader was Petty Officer Miles, who had the personality of a brick wall and the reputation of someone who didn't lose. She didn't care about politics, didn't care about Claire, and didn't care that we were Delta. She did, however, care that we showed up late. Which we didn't. We showed up exactly on time, but Bravo was already there, already formed, already geared. Miles looked at us like we'd disrespected her grandmother. "I hope you all stretch fast," she said, "because I don't wait." And she didn't. The simulation began immediately. High-pressure hostage scenario with live blanks, obstacle hazards, limited visibility. Bravo swept through their assigned building in 5 minutes. Delta took 8. But we didn't leave a single hostile untagged. And we didn't lose formation. Afterwards, Miles nodded once and said, "Not the worst I've seen." From her, that was basically a standing ovation. Claire wasn't at that drill. But Rourke was. He didn't say anything until after the debrief. Then he handed me a folded slip of paper. No envelope. Just his handwriting. "You're not playing their game, that's why it's working." Back at the barracks, Knox stopped me. "Hey, thanks for not giving up on us," he said, scratching the back of his neck like the words hurt coming out. "I didn't do it for you," I said. He laughed. "Yeah, but it still helped." The day of the evaluation came fast. Standard protocol, leadership simulation, tactical problem solving, moral decision tests. You go through it solo. No help, just you and the room. It started with a mock field dilemma. Your team is split. One half is pinned down. The other half has the objective in sight. Do you go for rescue or success? I wrote, "Success with loss is not success. Rescue first, regroup, return." The next test. A faulty command order from above. You know it's wrong. Do you follow it? I answered. Disobey with accountability. Fix it. Own it. Prepare to pay the price. By the end, the proctor, someone I'd never met, looked up from my packet. Do you always answer like a textbook no one wants to read? Actually work, only when someone writes the test to make me fail, I said. He smirked. You passed. I didn't ask how well. Didn't care. Outside, I saw Claire waiting. Not by chance. She was standing right there, arms crossed, posture perfect. I walked past without slowing down. She called out, "It's not over, you know." I didn't even turn around. "It was never about winning," I said. "Just surviving long enough to prove you were wrong." The report came back unsigned. It was just one page. Folded in half. Left on my bunk. No envelope, no note, no name. Just standard base printer paper with the words, Elena Morgan, unfit for field command. The wording wasn't subtle. Neither was the intent. It listed half-truths dressed up as red flags. Questionable allegiance to protocol. Disruptive influence on lower-performing units. Potential conflict of interest due to family ties. I'd seen cleaner smear jobs in corporate warfare. The only difference here? Someone forgot I wasn't the same kid who used to freeze up when the room turned cold. I folded the paper, put it in my pocket, and went to PT like nothing happened. That afternoon, Rodriguez pulled me aside during weapons checks. "You didn't hear it from me," he said again, his favorite disclaimer. "But there's talk that your eval results were considered." "They already cleared it," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, well, apparently, someone's pushing for a second review. No prize for guessing who." Claire knew she couldn't block me head-on anymore, not after the eval passed, but she could wear me down. Throw up roadblocks until I either broke protocol or walked off voluntarily. Thing is, I don't wear down easy. That night, Rourke stopped by. He didn't knock. He just leaned against the frame of our barracks and said, "You got a minute?" I followed him to the edge of the training field. He handed me a manila folder. Inside, an internal audit file, years old, barely legible in spots, but one name jumped off the page in all caps, Daniel Morgan, my father. Rourke lit a cigarette, stared straight ahead. This was buried, should have been gone, but someone forgot to delete the backup. The file included a chain of communications between Commander Hanley, Claire's mentor, and current base operations chief, and the investigative board that handled my dad's discharge. Most of it read like typical damage control, but one note stood out. A side comment, handwritten. "If Morgan speaks publicly, we may need to shift focus. Suggest character-based dismissal use insubordination angle." Rourke didn't say anything for a minute. Then, "I served with your dad. He wasn't perfect, but he didn't lie. And he sure as hell didn't betray command. 8-hearted bidey. I read the note again. You think Claire knows? I asked. She knows enough to stay quiet, Rourke said. Hanley sponsored her promotion. She owes him. I nodded once. None of this cleared my dad's name officially. But it was the first actual piece of proof that what happened to him wasn't just unfortunate, it was deliberate. I wasn't here just to train anymore. I was here to finish a story someone tried to erase. Back at barracks, Knox noticed something was off. You good? He asked. Define good, I replied. You look like someone gave you a target, but forgot to tell you when to pull the trigger. He wasn't wrong. The next day, Hanley called for a base-wide briefing. He rarely spoke in person, usually let sub-commanders handle the public-facing stuff. But now, there he was in uniform, behind the podium, looking proud and polished. Excellence, he said, is not earned once. It's maintained daily. And lately, I've seen signs that our standards are slipping. It wasn't subtle. Everyone knew what he meant. After the briefing, Claire caught up to me in the hallway. She looked calm. Too calm. You need to let this go, she said quietly. Which part? I asked. The sabotage, the smear, or the part where our father was publicly gutted and left to rot? You think revenge fixes anything? I'm not looking for revenge, I said. I'm looking for the truth. And unfortunately for you, it keeps leading back to the people you protect. She exhaled through her nose. You always think you're the only one who cares about integrity. No, I said. I just act like it. The rest of the day moved like a pressure cooker. Charlie Unit refused to do joint drills with Delta. Bravo went silent. And Alpha? They started avoiding eye contact altogether. The only one who didn't flinch was Rourke. He called me into the supply shed after chow. Paperwork's moving, he said. They're pushing your file for administrative review. How long? I asked. A week, maybe less. If it sticks, you're out. I looked him in the eye. Then I need access to that comms archive. He nodded. No questions. Just handed me a clearance badge. Temporary. Enough to enter the operations center after hours. That night, I went in alone. Scanned through old logs, filtered for flagged communications from the year my dad was discharged. Most of it was routine noise supply reports, training rosters, incident write-ups, but then I found it. A deleted audio clip, still recoverable from internal logs. A voice Hanley's saying, if this turns public, we'll frame it as emotional instability. His daughter's in the system now. Use her if needed. I stared at the screen. Didn't blink. That wasn't a theory. That was strategy. Pre-planned. Cold. Targeted. I copied the file, logged out, and left. Didn't say a word to anyone. Didn't show my face for the rest of the night. Not because I was hiding. Because I was ready. The next morning, I showed up early to the drill yard, same as always. But the vibe was different. You could feel it in the air, tight, brittle, like something had been waiting to snap. Delta wasn't slacking. We'd been sharper than ever. But today, the instructors were watching us like they were waiting for us to screw up. Even the clipboard guys, usually background noise, were whispering and moving in packs. By 0600, the entire base had been called to formation. No explanation. Just a lineup across the field, every unit in full gear. Claire stood off to the side with the other officers, arms crossed, eyes on me like she was already counting down to impact. Then Hanley walked out. This wasn't normal. Commanders didn't make unannounced appearances at routine drills unless something big was coming or someone was about to be made an example of. He stepped up to the center, calm, controlled, and completely in charge of the moment. Effective leadership, he started, is more than just executing orders. It's knowing when to challenge the system and when to respect it. He looked straight at me. Didn't blink. We've had a lot of disruption lately, he said. Unusual patterns. Unregulated initiative. Lines being crossed by people who haven't earned the right to challenge protocol. The field went silent. No one moved. So today, he continued, we're going to run a field drill. 2 squads, 1 simulation, 1 live decision test. He pointed at me. Morgan, you'll lead Delta. Then he turned to Claire. You'll lead Bravo. I didn't flinch. Claire? She smiled. This wasn't just a drill. This was his move, the public takedown. Set me up to compete against a unit twice as skilled, under Claire's command, in front of the entire base. Make me look reckless, inexperienced, and insubordinate in one clean shot. I stepped forward. Understood, sir. Rourke passed me a set of sealed instructions. I didn't look at them right away. I just met his eyes for a second. No words. But he nodded once. The simulation was a joint operation. Extract a high-value asset from a compromised building, secure comms, and retreat without triggering secondary alarms. Half the zone was rigged with sensors, and the clock started the second we crossed the threshold. We had 15 minutes. I pulled Delta together. They were quiet but locked in. We're not here to beat them, I said. We're here to beat what they expect from us. Rodriguez grinned. So, same as usual? Exactly. We moved in tight formation. Bravo took the obvious route, straight front assault, high visibility, maximum control. Claire's style, clean, strategic, by the book. She trusted the system because it had always worked for her. I went wide. Split the team into pairs, used flanking maneuvers, and took the long way around the perimeter, twice the distance, but half the exposure. Every move was quiet, every step calculated. Inside the building, the comm relay had been disabled expected, but we had backup frequencies. Harlow rerouted through auxiliary power, Carter located the asset and instructor playing the role, and Rodriguez cleared the secondary exit without triggering a single alarm. 12 minutes in, we were already on our way out. That's when we heard shouting from the east wing. Bravo had triggered a sensor. Hanley's voice came through the overhead speakers, dry and clinical. Simulation escalation. Bravo compromised. Delta, status. I clicked my comm. Asset secured. Exiting west corridor. 10 seconds of silence. Then, Delta, proceed. We hit the finish line at 13 minutes, 31 seconds. Bravo limped in nearly 2 minutes later, out of sync, one member short after getting injured during the breach. I didn't celebrate. Didn't even breathe deep. Hanley stepped into the field, face unreadable. He nodded at Claire, then at me. Unexpected outcome, he said. Claire didn't speak. She didn't need to. The scoreboard behind him had already updated. Delta, success. Bravo, failure. Rourke approached, arms crossed, and for once, actually smiled. You've got their attention now, he muttered. I looked around. The base didn't erupt. No applause, just a shift, a quiet realignment. The way people looked at me changed. Less doubt, less amusement, more calculation. I wasn't just the sister anymore. I was a problem they hadn't prepared for. Back in the barracks, I found another folded piece of paper on my bunk. Same printer, same style, but this one didn't come with threats. It was a single sentence. You're not the story they planned. Be careful how you write the next part. No name. But I recognized the phrasing. Rourke had a flair for understatement. The truth was, I didn't need to write anything. I just had to keep showing up, keep moving, and wait for the system to trip over its own lies. I walked into records under a fake maintenance request. No one looked twice. When you move like you belong, most people don't ask questions. The digital archive was buried under decades of routine garbage logistics requests, promotion reviews, minor infractions, recycled annual reports. I wasn't looking for headlines. I was looking for fine print. I narrowed the search window to 1 year, the final year my dad served. His name didn't appear on most of the incident logs. That wasn't surprising. If you want to ruin someone quietly, you don't accuse them directly. You build a shadow around them until the light just stops reaching. But buried in the metadata, I found something. A personnel review, one he was never supposed to see. Hidden under a flagged Leadership Risk Index form, signed by then-Lieutenant Hanley. I clicked open the comments section. Subject demonstrates consistent questioning of command directives. Undermines cohesion by prioritizing moral judgment over protocol. Risk of ideological dissent increasing. Gay-Manese, with all effin' leasing. That wasn't a performance review. That was a setup. I kept digging. Cross-referenced every officer who signed off on his discharge. Same circle, same tone. And most of them had one more thing in common. They'd all been promoted within 6 months of his removal. One name stood out, Lieutenant Michael C. Hanley, promoted to commander, 2 weeks after my father was forced out. There it was. The blueprint of how you kill a career without firing a shot. Back at the barracks, I laid everything out across my bunk printouts, annotated files, the audio clip of Hanley suggesting I could be used as leverage. Rourke came by without knocking. He took one look and said, "So you found it." More than I wanted, I said. Less than I need. He nodded. That's usually how truth works. I held up the old discharge file. If this hits JAG, it doesn't just affect Hanley. It pulls down everyone who helped bury it. That includes people still serving, maybe even Claire. Rourke stayed quiet. I asked the question anyway. How much did you know back then? He looked tired. Enough to stay out of it, enough to regret that. That was the first time he admitted it. No defense. No badge talk. Just a man who watched something wrong happen and lived with it. Then he said something I didn't expect. I can get it in front of someone, quietly, but once it moves, it's out of your hands. It is makes, I nodded. That night, I copied the files onto an encrypted drive, labeled it under a fake inventory tag, and handed it off to Rourke without another word. The next day felt normal. Too normal. No briefing, no drills, just a general standby for further instructions broadcast across the base. When people don't know what's coming, they pretend nothing is. Like silence means safety. But the silence didn't last. Just after noon, a formal bulletin went out. Commander Hanley was being placed under internal review for administrative irregularities. The wording was cautious, legal, but the message was clear. Someone had cracked open the wrong drawer. I didn't react. Neither did Delta. We didn't need to. Claire, though she showed up at my bunk before dinner, eyes sharp, voice low. "What did you do?" she asked. I told the truth, I said. "You know what this means?" "Yeah. It means they finally have to explain what they did." Claire looked around, like someone might be listening. "This won't stop with him. The people who protected him, they won't let this slide." "I'm not scared of them," I said. She took a step closer. "You should be." I stared at her for a long second, then said, "You knew what happened, and you still kept your mouth shut. Why?" She hesitated. The first real hesitation I'd ever seen from her. "Because I wanted to survive," she said. "Even if that meant helping bury our father?" She looked away. "He was already gone, Elena." I didn't reply. There was nothing else to say. 2 hours later, the base was put on soft lockdown, no one in or out without clearance. Rourke didn't answer messages. The other officers went quiet. And Hanley? Gone. Pulled from command. Temporary leave, pending full review. But the best part? His name was removed from the officer mentorship program, the same one that pushed Claire through the ranks. That night, the lights in the barracks stayed on longer than usual. No one slept, not because we were worried, but because something had finally shifted, like the air had changed pressure. Knox leaned back on his bunk, arms folded behind his head. "So what now?" he asked. I said, "Now we see what they do when they don't get to write the ending themselves." I didn't expect her to show up in the gym. Not Claire. Not after everything that had just happened. But there she was, standing in the corner, near the sparring mats. Arms crossed, hair tied back, military tight, like she was pretending everything was still normal. Like the entire base hadn't just watched her mentor vanish from command under a cloud of half-whispers and classified accusations. I was finishing cool-down reps. Sweat soaked through my shirt. My hands were chalked and raw. I didn't bother wiping down before walking over. If she was going to confront me, she could do it while I still had fight in my lungs. She didn't move when I stopped in front of her. "You think this makes you a hero?" she said, quiet but sharp. "No," I said. "I think it makes me a problem, which is probably worse." She looked down at her boots, like they might say something better than I just had. "I should have stopped you earlier," she muttered. "Should have transferred you out before you got this deep." I shrugged. "You had your chances. You just didn't think I could last." She didn't argue with that. Then softer. "You don't understand the position I was in. What they promised. What they threatened." "I understand exactly," I said. "You chose the safe path. You chose promotion over truth. I chose not to blow up my entire career over something I couldn't prove, she snapped. You didn't have to prove it. You just had to stop protecting the people who did it. She flinched. For the first time, Claire looked like someone who was running out of justifications. Not because she didn't have any left, but because they didn't work on me anymore. I thought maybe if I kept my record clean, she said, I could fix things from the inside. That's not fixing. That's waiting, I said. And you waited too long. She didn't speak again for a long moment. Then, what happens now? I don't know, I said honestly. But I'm not leaving. Not until everything's out in the open. Her voice cracked just slightly. They'll bury you for this. Quietly. They already tried. I'm still standing. She turned to walk away, but stopped halfway, her back still facing me. I hated you, she said, not even turning around. Not because you were weak, but because you reminded me what I was supposed to be. Then she left. No dramatic ending, no apology, just a sentence and a door swinging shut behind her. That night, I found a new message in my inbox. It wasn't from Rourke, it wasn't from Command. It was from Internal Affairs. Subject line, Authorization request, in-person debrief, you will be heard. I read it twice. It wasn't a threat. It was a door opening. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I printed it, folded it, and slipped it into the same envelope where I'd kept my dad's final review. His handwriting, my signature, their lies, all stacked neatly. In the morning, I ran with Delta like nothing had changed. Same drills, same sweat, but they were different now. Carter shouted cadence. Harlow corrected Knox's grip before I even got to him. Rodriguez offered to lead PT without being asked. We weren't a rescue project anymore. We were a unit. A real one. Halfway through the run, Harlow dropped back to pace with me. So, she asked, you taking that meeting? Thinking about it, I said. She smirked. You'd better. Otherwise, I'll just tell them everything myself, and I'm terrible with words. I laughed. First time in weeks. At Chow, Claire didn't show. Her name wasn't on the officers' roster anymore either. Later, I'd hear she requested a transfer to another base. Voluntary, quiet, clean. Just like she always liked things. By sundown, I was packing a go bag not to leave, but to be ready. If that meeting with Internal Affairs went the way I thought it might, everything could shift. Not just for me, for every other name buried in reports like my dad's. Rourke stopped by one last time, dropping off a plain folder. Inside, a photo of my father in uniform, standing next to a much younger Rourke, both smiling, both unaware of the storm that would one day come. Found it in an old file box, he said. Figured it belonged with you now. I nodded. It did. I walked into the IA office wearing full uniform, boots polished, no dust, no shortcuts. Not for them. For me. Because if I was going to put everything on the table, I wanted to do it standing tall, clean, sharp, exactly the soldier they tried to erase when they went after my father. The debrief room was colder than expected. White walls, no nameplates, just two officers in plain dress and one recorder blinking red on the table. The older one motioned toward the seat. Elena Morgan? Yes, sir. You're here voluntarily? Yes. We'll ask a few questions, and then you can present your files. If at any point you want to stop, you can. I nodded once. I won't. They started with the basics, my timeline, my decision to enlist, my relationship to Daniel Morgan, no spin, no theater, just questions designed to poke for inconsistencies. They didn't find any. I laid out the file folder like evidence in court. The discharge manipulation. The audio clip of Hanley's voice planning the narrative. The falsified reports Claire had buried or ignored. And finally, the internal documents that confirmed a strategic smear campaign designed to remove an officer who asked the wrong questions at the wrong time. None of it was speculative. Every page had a name, a date, a trail. When I finished, the younger officer asked, "What exactly are you hoping to accomplish with this?" I answered without hesitation. Accountability, and an official correction to my father's service record. The older one nodded. That's not easy, and it's not fast. I didn't come here for easy, I said. I came here because it's right. There was a long silence, broken only by the steady tick of the recorder. Then, "We'll review everything. This isn't over today, but it starts today." That was enough. I walked out without a badge. Without a guarantee. But I wasn't empty-handed anymore. Back at base, the wind had picked up. Coastal storms had been threatening all week, and by dusk, the sky looked like steel, low and heavy. Delta was already in formation when I arrived. No one said a word. They just adjusted, made space, locked in. I didn't need to give a speech. They knew. 2 hours later, I got the call. Private number. No name. The voice on the other end was calm, but firm. "Miss Morgan, this is to inform you that preliminary findings support your claim. Your father's discharge will be reclassified as honorable, effective immediately. A formal notice will follow." I didn't say anything. Not because I couldn't, because for the first time since I'd stepped on this base, I didn't have to prove anything anymore. The next day, they posted the update on the internal command bulletin. Small print, lower corner, like they hoped no one would notice. But they noticed. Rourke walked past me in the corridor, gave a slight nod. "Official now," he said. "You did it." "No," I replied. "We did." He didn't argue. Later that morning, Delta got reassigned out of the bottom rotation and into a standard deployment training cycle. No more skipped drills. No more limited resources. We were just another unit now. Which was exactly what we wanted. Rodriguez made the announcement like it was a joke. "Guess we're regular grunts now." Knox rolled his eyes. "Took you long enough to catch up." We didn't cheer. We trained. At chow, someone from Alpha slid into the seat next to me. Didn't say anything. Just handed over a folded napkin. On it, in sloppy handwriting, "Your dad was one of the good ones. Took guts to bring this back." No name. Just the truth passed down quietly, like most things that matter. Claire was gone. Her transfer had been approved and processed in record time. Last I heard, she was reassigned to an administrative post on the East Coast. Nothing flashy, no ceremony. We hadn't spoken since the gym. And I was okay with that. Some breaks don't get mended. Some wounds close. But they leave something jagged behind. Not pain, just memory. Weeks passed. The base moved on. People stopped whispering. Delta became what it was always supposed to be: tough, tight, capable. And I stayed. Not because I had something left to prove. Because I had something left to build. One morning during weapons drills, Harlow looked over and said, "Hey, you ever think about commissioning? Going officer?" I laughed. I just got out of a fight with officers. "You want me to become one?" She shrugged. "Might be the only way to make sure there's at least one good one out there." I didn't answer. But I thought about it. And I still do. I never joined the Navy to become a symbol. I joined because something had been taken from my family, and nobody else was going to fight to get it back. What started as survival turned into something bigger: justice, redemption, and finally, peace. Not just for my father. For me. For the team that believed in me when no one else would. And maybe for every name that ever got buried in someone else's agenda. If this story hit home for you, or if you believe in real military stories, family redemption, and the fight to do what's right, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We've got more powerful family revenge stories like this coming, all grounded in truth, grit, and the reality that some battles are worth fighting, especially the ones closest to home.